Imagine waking up tomorrow with the power to bend people's will without them even realizing it. Imagine walking into a room and instantly commanding attention, not because you're the loudest or the most attractive, but because something about you feels dangerously magnetic. What if I told you that charm isn't about being nice, or polite, or even likable? It's about control. Real charm is psychological warfare disguised as kindness, and few people in history understood this better than Niccolò Machiavelli. His ideas were so dark, so brutally honest about human nature, that for centuries his name has been associated with manipulation, deception, and ruthless strategy. And yet, buried within his words are the secrets to becoming dangerously charming. The kind of charm that makes people follow you, trust you, and even love you, while you quietly shape their decisions to serve your interests. Before we dive deep, make sure you hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more psychological insights. And tell me in the comments, from which city and country are you watching this right now? I want to know where our global community of sharp minds is tuning in from. Here's the brutal truth. Most people believe charm is about being good. They think it's about compliments, smiles, and trying to please others. That's not charm. That's weakness disguised as friendliness. Real charm isn't about lowering yourself to fit into someone's expectations. It's about elevating yourself in a way that others can't help but lean toward you. Machiavelli understood that humans are selfish, fearful, and driven by hidden desires. To charm them, you don't fight these instincts, you exploit them. You give people the illusion of safety, while quietly guiding them exactly where you want them to go. Think about it. When someone compliments you too much, you suspect flattery. But when someone challenges you, subtly makes you feel like you need to prove yourself to them, suddenly their approval becomes valuable. Machiavelli knew this. He knew that to be charming, you must not give people everything they want, but just enough to keep them chasing more. That's why dangerous charm has nothing to do with being predictable. Predictability is boring. Predictability kills attraction, kills influence, kills power. Instead, you must master the art of controlled unpredictability, sometimes warm, sometimes distant, sometimes funny, sometimes serious. Like a pendulum, you keep people off balance, craving your attention, never fully secure, always needing more. But here's where it gets even darker. Charm isn't just about how you behave, it's about how you make others feel about themselves in your presence. Machiavelli believed that rulers must appear virtuous while secretly pursuing their own interests. Applied to charm, this means you don't have to be good. You just have to look good. You don't need to be kind. You just need to make people feel important. Because humans are so self-absorbed, they rarely see who you truly are. They only see the reflection of themselves in your eyes. If you want to be dangerously charming, stop trying to impress people. Instead, make them feel like they are impressing you. Make them feel smart, desirable, chosen. They'll walk away thinking you're incredible, when really, they're just intoxicated by their own reflection. Now, let's talk about silence, the secret weapon of every dangerously charming person. Most people are uncomfortable with silence, so they rush to fill it with words, jokes, stories, explanations. But Machiavellian charm thrives in silence. A well-placed pause makes others lean in, desperate to know what you're thinking. A mysterious smile held just a second too long makes them wonder what secret you're hiding. While they scramble to interpret your silence, you're already controlling the frame. Silence turns you into a puzzle, and humans can't resist puzzles. They can't stand not knowing, and that curiosity becomes your hook. But let's push deeper. What makes dangerous charm so irresistible is not perfection, but contradiction. Machiavelli understood that humans love complexity. A person who is only sweet becomes boring. A person who is only cold becomes unapproachable. But combine opposites, warmth with mystery, kindness with sharp wit, intelligence with unpredictability, and suddenly you become unforgettable. Think about it. The people you remember most aren't the ones who were simply nice. They're the ones who made you feel a storm of emotions, sometimes confused, sometimes intrigued, sometimes challenged, but never indifferent. Indifference is death to charm. Contradiction is life. And here's where psychology hits hardest. The brain remembers emotional spikes, not calm consistency. When someone makes you feel a sudden rush of curiosity, or admiration, or even jealousy, your brain marks that moment as significant. That's why dangerously charming people are never flat. They create emotional highs and lows that burn themselves into memory. They don't just walk into your life. They brand themselves into your psyche. Now, let's look at one of Machiavelli's most controversial insights. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Applied to charm, this doesn't mean you should terrify people. It means that love without respect is fragile, but respect, even tinged with a little fear, creates loyalty. The dangerously charming individual is never just nice. They carry an edge, a shadow, a sense that crossing them would be a mistake. That tension makes their charm addictive, because it's charm with consequences. You don't just want their approval, you need it, because you sense what it would feel like to lose it. But here's the catch most people miss. Machiavelli never advocated cruelty for its own sake. He advocated strategy. If cruelty achieves a purpose, use it. If kindness achieves a purpose, use it. The key is control. To be dangerously charming, you must not be trapped in one identity. You must be fluid, able to adapt, able to become exactly what the moment demands. One moment a gentle listener, the next a bold challenger. One moment generous, the next mysteriously distant. That adaptability is what keeps you untouchable, because no one can ever fully predict you, and unpredictability is the ultimate power. Let me leave you with this disturbing thought. Most people who are charming are slaves to their own need for approval. They charm others, hoping to be liked. But Machiavellian charm is the opposite. It is charm used as a weapon, not a weakness. When you master it, people don't just like you. They orbit around you. They chase your approval. They crave your presence. They surrender their power without even realizing it. That is the essence of becoming dangerously charming. Most people believe they are immune to manipulation. They like to think they see through lies, that they can't be tricked, that their judgment is strong. But the most dangerous charm works in the shadows of the mind, beneath awareness, in places where logic cannot reach. Machiavelli knew that human beings are not governed by reason. They are governed by fear, desire, vanity, and insecurity. And if you want to be dangerously charming, you don't fight those forces. You feed them. You don't argue with someone's pride. You inflate it. You don't contradict their fears. You soothe them. And once you have shaped the emotional storm inside their mind, they'll believe anything you tell them was their own idea. That's not just charm. That's psychological domination disguised as affection. Now think about this. Why do people fall so quickly for manipulators, liars, or toxic partners, even when the truth is obvious? Because charm is not about truth. It's about emotion. A lie wrapped in charm feels more real than a truth delivered without it. That's why the dangerously charming never argue with facts. Instead, they play with feelings. They know that humans rarely act on logic. They act on how something makes them feel. Machiavelli himself wrote that people judge more by appearances than by reality. If you want to master charm, stop obsessing over being real and start mastering perception. Because people don't see who you are. They see who they want you to be. Let me ask you something unsettling. Have you ever met someone who instantly pulled you in? Someone who made you feel special, only to realize later they were using you? That experience is Machiavellian charm in action. It works because it doesn't force you. It seduces you. It whispers what you want to hear. It reflects back your desires. It mirrors your insecurities. And by the time you realize what's happening, you're already hooked. That is the razor's edge of dangerous charm. It doesn't take power by force. It makes you give it willingly. But how do you build this kind of presence in your everyday life? The first step is control of your emotions. Machiavelli warned that rulers who are too passionate or impulsive become easy targets. The same is true for charm. If you explode in anger or collapse in sadness, you give away your power. But if you stay calm when others panic, if you stay mysterious when others overshare, you create an aura of control. People are drawn to that calm strength because most humans are chaotic inside. They crave stability, and when you embody it, they cling to you like a lifeline. Dangerous charm begins with self-mastery, because only then can you master others. The second step is storytelling. Every dangerously charming person is a master of stories, not just the ones they tell out loud, but the silent stories they make others tell themselves. When you walk into a room dressed with precision, holding yourself with confidence, you don't need to say you're important. People will write that story in their own minds. When you give someone a subtle compliment, then pull away, they don't just hear your words. They start creating a story about why your approval matters. Machiavelli knew that humans live more in their imagination than in reality. And if you can feed that imagination, you control their world. But let's make it darker. The ultimate form of charm is to become what people need, not who you really are. Think about it. If someone is lonely, charm them by being attentive. If someone is insecure, charm them by making them feel powerful. If someone is arrogant, charm them by subtly challenging their superiority. Dangerous charm is fluid. It adapts. It doesn't cling to one identity, because it knows that to conquer different minds, you must wear different masks. And here's the terrifying truth. If you wear enough masks long enough, people won't know the real you. And eventually, maybe you won't either. Now, let's talk about laughter. You might think humor is just about fun, but in psychology, laughter is a weapon of dominance. The one who makes others laugh is the one controlling the emotional temperature of the room. Machiavelli would say, make them laugh, but never laugh too much yourself. Because excessive laughter lowers your status. It shows neediness. The dangerously charming use humor like a scalpel, not a hammer. A quick, witty remark, a playful jab, a perfectly timed pause. These create bonds, but also establish hierarchy. People love those who can make them laugh, but they respect those who make them laugh without ever becoming clowns. And what about seduction? Machiavelli never wrote about romance directly, but his principles apply perfectly. Seduction is not about giving, it's about withholding. It's about giving just enough to awaken desire, then pulling back to let the hunger grow. If you flood someone with attention, they drown in it and lose interest. But if you give attention in measured doses, sometimes intense, sometimes absent, you create an addiction. That's why dangerous charm feels like a drug. Too much, and the high disappears. But just enough at the right time, and people will chase it forever. Let's expose one more Machiavellian truth. Humans are drawn to those who seem like they could destroy them, but choose not to. Think of it. When someone has great power, great intelligence, or great influence, and yet they show restraint, they become magnetic. Why? Because people admire control over chaos. They admire someone who could be cruel, but chooses kindness. Someone who could dominate, but chooses subtlety. This is why the dangerously charming are never completely soft. There's always an edge, a shadow, a suggestion of something darker beneath the smile. That tension keeps people alert, alive, addicted. And here's the psychological trap. Once people are hooked on your charm, they begin to justify everything you do. This is known as cognitive dissonance. When someone invests their emotions in you, they will bend reality to protect that investment. If you disappoint them, they'll excuse it. If you vanish, they'll chase you harder. If you hurt them, they'll convince themselves it's their fault. This is why the dangerously charming don't have to be perfect. They just have to make people feel. Once the emotions are strong enough, the mind will rewrite the story to keep you as the hero. So, let me ask you, are you starting to see how powerful this really is? This isn't just about being liked. This is about bending human psychology in your favor. Most people stumble through life begging for approval. But with Machiavellian charm, you flip the game. You stop chasing people, and people start chasing you. You stop trying to impress, and others start trying to impress you. You stop being ordinary, and you start becoming unforgettable. Good. Now let's strip away the last illusion. Dangerous charm isn't about smiling your way through life. It isn't about being universally loved. It's about power. At its core, charm is a weapon. And like any weapon, it can be used to protect or to conquer. Most people live their lives desperate for affection, desperate to be understood, desperate to be accepted. But the Machiavellian mind knows something different. Affection fades. Admiration is fragile. But power lasts. And charm, when sharpened, is the most silent form of power in existence. Let's be brutally honest. People don't want honesty. They want comfort. They want reassurance. They want someone who makes them feel special. Someone who makes them feel chosen. That's why most humans are so easy to charm. They're starving for validation. And if you can master the art of feeding that hunger in controlled doses, you'll never run out of influence. Machiavelli wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, cowards, greedy. But he also knew these weaknesses are not flaws to avoid. They are entry points. When you appeal to someone's greed, you own them. When you soothe their fear, you own them. When you stroke their vanity, you own them. That is why dangerous charm isn't just about personality. It's about strategy. Now, let's go deeper into the mechanics. One of the most effective techniques is the art of selective attention. Human beings crave recognition. But if you give attention to everyone equally, it loses value. The dangerously charming person is selective. They give their gaze like a rare gift. They make one person in the room feel seen while ignoring the rest. That scarcity creates obsession. It makes people fight for your approval, compete for your recognition, and once they're competing, you've already won. Because nothing is more powerful than making others chase what you control. Another weapon is the power of absence. This is something most people fear. They think if they step away, they'll be forgotten. But Machiavelli would remind you, absence increases respect. Presence makes you ordinary. Absence makes you legendary. When you withdraw at the right moment, you create space for imagination. And imagination is always more powerful than reality. People will exaggerate your importance your value, your mystery, simply because you're not there to ruin the fantasy with the truth. That's why the dangerously charming never flood others with their presence. They appear, they conquer, and then they disappear, leaving a hunger that only they can satisfy. Let's touch on something darker still: empathy as a tool. Most people think empathy is weakness, but in the hands of the Machiavellian mind, it's a scalpel. To charm someone, you must first know what hurts them, what scares them, what excites them. Dangerous charm listens not to be kind, but to collect data. And once you know their hidden wounds, you can play them like strings on a violin. You can soothe when it serves you. You can wound when it serves you. You can bind someone to you forever by being the only one who seems to understand them, even if that understanding is just another mask you wear. But here's the final twist. Dangerous charm is not about faking everything. It's about authenticity used selectively. If everything is manipulation, people eventually sense it. But if you mix truth with strategy, if you reveal just enough real vulnerability, if you let just one scar show through the mask, people will believe all of it. They'll think, this person is genuine. This person is real. And once they believe you're real, they'll never suspect the parts of you that aren't. That's the ultimate deception. Hiding lies in the shadow of truth. So, why does all of this matter? Because the world doesn't reward the nice, the predictable, the ordinary. The world rewards those who understand psychology, those who can bend perception, those who can control the emotional temperature of every room they walk into. And in a world filled with noise, the dangerously charming stand out as unforgettable. They are remembered not because they were perfect, but because they were unforgettable contradictions. Soft yet sharp, kind yet dangerous, light yet shadowed. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth you need to hear. You are already using charm, whether you know it or not. Every smile, every silence, every compliment, every withdrawal, it's all part of the game. The difference is, right now, you may be playing unconsciously, letting others dictate the rules. But once you become conscious of it, once you sharpen it, once you stop begging for approval and start controlling it, everything changes. You stop being a pawn in other people's games, and you start being the one moving the pieces. That is the Machiavellian transformation. That is how you become dangerously charming. So I'll leave you with this. People will never remember the polite, the predictable, the ordinary. But they will never forget the one who made them feel a storm of emotions, the one who confused them, intrigued them, unsettled them, but kept them coming back for more. Become that person. Become the contradiction. Become dangerously charming.